Krishna Mataji, you can start now.
Okay. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalagya Chakshuruthmilana Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manopishtam Savitam Mena Budale Svantyo Bhakadamahyam Tadadi Subhadandikam. Hare Krishna. Today I'm going to read the book Teachings of Lord Chaitanya by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The energy of the Supreme Lord is transcendental and spiritual, and the living entities are part and parcel of that energy. But there is another energy called material energy, which is covered by the cloud of ignorance and thereby divided into the three modes of gunas or gunas of material nature. Lord Chaitanya quoted from Vishnu Purana that all inconceivable energies reside in the Supreme Personality of the Lord, and the whole cosmic manifestation acts due to the same inconceivable energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord says that the living entities are also known as Kshetrajna or knower of the field of activities. In the 13th chapter of the Gita, the body is described as a field of activities, and the living entity is Kshetrajna, the knower of that field. Although the living entity is constitutionally conversant with spiritual energy or has the potency to understand, he is covered by the material energy, and he consequently believes this body to be himself. This is called false ego. In material existence, deluded by this false ego, the bewildered living entity changes his different bodies and suffers various kinds of miseries. The knowledge of his true position is present to different extents in different varieties of living entities. In other words, it is to be understood that the living entity is part and parcel of the spiritual energy of the Supreme Lord. The material energy is inferior energy, and therefore man has the potency to become uncovered from this material energy and utilize the spiritual energy. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the superior energy is covered by the inferior energy. Due to this covering, the living entity is subjected to the miseries of the material world, and in proportion to the different degrees of obscureness, he suffers material miseries. Those who are a little enlightened suffer less, but on the whole, everyone is subjected to material miseries due to being covered by the material energy. The Lord also quoted from the Gita, 7th chapter, in which it is stated that earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego all combine together to form the inferior energy of the Supreme Lord. But the superior energy is the real identity of the living being. Because of that energy, the whole material world functions. The cosmic manifestation made of material elements has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy, the living entity. So, actually, the conditions life of the living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord in the superior energy. When that relationship is forgotten, conditioned life is the result. Only when man revives his real identity, that of eternal servitor of the Lord, does he become liberated. Chapter 4. The Wise Man. Nobody can trace the history of the living entity's entanglement in material energy. Therefore, the Lord says that it is beginless. Beginless means that conditioned life exists prior to the creation. It is simply manifested with and after the creation. Due to forgetfulness of his nature, the living entity, although spirit, suffers all kinds of miseries in material existence. It is to be understood here that there are also other living entities that are not entangled in this material energy. Such living entities are situated in the spiritual world, and they are called liberated souls. They are always engaged in Krishna consciousness in devotional service. The activities of those who are conditioned by material nature are taken into account, and in their next life, according to these activities, they are offered different grades of material bodies. In the material world, the spiritual soul is in conditioned life is subjected to different rewards and punishments. When he is rewarded, he is elevated to the higher planets due to his righteous activities, and there he becomes one of the many demigods. And when he is punished for his abominable activities, he is thrown into different kinds of hellish planets, and there he suffers the miseries of material existence more acutely. The Lord gives a very nice example of this punishment. Formerly, a king used to punish a criminal by dunking him in the river and then raising him again for a breath and then again dunking him once more in the water. Material nature punishes and rewards the individual in entity in just the same way. When he is punished, he is dunked into the water, material mysteries, and when he is rewarded, he is taken out of it for some time. Elevation of the living entity to higher planes or to a higher status of life is never permanent. He has to come down again to be submerged in the water. All this goes on in this material existence. Sometimes one is elevated to the higher planetary system, and sometimes one is thrown into the hellish condition of material life. In this connection, the Lord recites a nice verse from Srimad Bhagavatam taken from the instruction of Narada Muni to Vasudeva, the father of Krishna. In this quotation from the nine sages who were instructing Maharaj Nimi, it is stated that forgetfulness of the relationship with Krishna is called Maya. Actually, Maya means that which is not. It has no existence. Therefore, that the living entity has no connection with the Supreme Lord is a false conception. He may not believe in the existence of God, or he may think he has no relationship with God, but these are all illusions or Maya. Due to his absorption in this false conception of life, man is always fearful and full of anxieties. In other words, a godless concept of life is Maya, and therefore, one who is actually learned in the Vedic literature surrenders unto the Supreme Lord with great devotion and accepts Him as the Supreme God. When a living entity becomes forgetful of the constitutional nature of his relationship with God, then he is at once overwhelmed by the external energy, and this is the cause of his false ego, identifying his body as himself. His whole conception of the material universe is due to this false conception of the body. He becomes attached to this body and to the byproducts of this body. To escape this entanglement, he has simply to perform his duty, to surrender unto the Supreme Lord with intelligence, with devotion, and with sincere Krishna consciousness. A, a conditioned soul falsely thinks himself happy in the material world, but he is favored by an unalloyed devotee. By hearing instruction from the unalloyed devotee, he gives up the desire for material enjoyment and becomes enlightened in Krishna consciousness. As soon as one enters into Krishna consciousness, his desire for material enjoyment at once is vanquished, and gradually he becomes free from material entanglement. For example, because there is no question of darkness, and there is light. Krishna consciousness is like the light that dispels the darkness of material sense enjoyment. Hare Krishna. So, the summary of this reading is there are two types of energies, material energy and spiritual energy. Material energy is inferior and the spiritual energy is superior. They both are Krishna's energy only. The spiritual energy is covered by the material energy. Material energy is covered with ignorance. It is divided into three modes of material nature: mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Everything works based on these three gunas. The living entity has the potential to understand the spiritual energy, but it is covered by material energy. The jiva wants to enjoy independently and believe that this body is himself. That is false ego. When they forget their real identity, the living entity undergoes various kinds of miseries. Bhagavad Gita 7.14, Krishna says, Devi he shagunamai mama maya duratya mameva ye prabhadyante maya edam tarantite. Which means my divine energy, Maya, consists of three modes of material nature, is very difficult to overcome, but those who surrenders unto me cross over it easily. So there's a potency to become uncovered and utilize spiritual energy. That is only through devotional practice. Material energy composes of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Superior energy is the real identity of the living being, but the living entity forgets about its relationship with the Supreme Lord. Chapter 4 talks about the living entity's entanglement in material energy. The conditioned souls in their next life, according to their activities, they are offered different material bodies and goes to either higher planets or due to their righteous activities they go to due to their righteous activities or they go to like a hellish planets. Whatever good things we do, it will carry on to the next life. Forgetfulness of the relationship with Krishna is Maya. So that's what I realized from this reading. Hare Krishna.